Should I call the meeting to order? Calling the meeting to order. Yeah. So you're
Yeah, sorry. I was waiting to see if something else came after that. Well, welcome everybody. This afternoon we have our work session, and as we stated earlier this year as we released our district priorities, our work sessions this year will largely consist of updates around the different parts of our district priorities document. And so it's been a lot of fun to open up our 2 new schools this fall and fun to see kids occupying them. It's been interesting to look at how our population of students is kind of now being redistributed into those new schools, as well as the boundary changes and how all of that affects our overall picture of student enrollment and facilities moving forward. So last year, because we had a lot going on, our population went down just a little bit. We kind of went into a little different mode around some of our future planning. We need to pick that up again now and earnestly do kind of a refresh today of where the current facility plan stands, as well as start to take a look now into the future of what's next. We have some mission accomplished this fall, so now we need to begin planning and remember what we've got in the works for land acquisition and some of the other pieces. So Jeff Kreider is with us today, and he's gonna do both of those things, kind of a refresher course and an update, as well as begin helping us project forward. So Jeff, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, thank you. Today, the CIP Improvement Plan Update Report. And some of this will be review for a lot of you, but I'll kind of give you the status of where we're at. So this will be a status of all the projects, cost summary to date, so you'll see kind of where we're projecting, where we're at currently, and that's with the projects that have been bid or completed. Future approved CIP projects, and we'll talk about scheduling for those, land availability, and potential CIP projects, and those will be some of the future. So with that, we'll just get started with these are the projects. This 10 projects, these have been bid and are currently either completed or still ongoing, and I'll kind of give you that as we go through that. I'm not going to read every one of those, and we'll hit each one individually. So we'll start with Jefferson High School. We're operating. It looks pretty good, but our estimated completion is 2021, but I would guess by the time we get everything done, it will be probably towards the end of the year. A lot of punch list items, still things that we found that we need to purchase for equipment or something that was left out. So we continue to work on that. But with that, the overall project cost is about $84,100,000. So that's a projected, and I've kind of tried to project what change orders are out there and anything that still might yet to become. There might be a surprise to us, but I've tried to project that. And what that would do is bring us to about $6,562,000 under budget for that overall project. So feel pretty good about that. And that includes that about $720,000 Terry Avenue reimbursement that will come from Southeast Tech and a portion of that Boyce property group that owns the other portion. So we did both sides of the road. It makes it a lot easier, and we have an agreement with them. Next one has been Reifel. Same kind of thing. We're up and running. We still have punch lists to do. Everything is in place. We'll try to get that one done before the end of this fiscal year, and the total project cost there is about $39,066,000. Now, there's a surprise that is just coming up, but I have that included in that number. Is we had that emergency radio system. I think Cynthia knows all about that. We did an evaluation and it all tested good, and now the police came in there and it's not tested good. So with their radio, so they're doing that. So there was another test last week. And so I haven't heard what we're going to end up having to do, but my gut feeling is we're going to probably have to put some type of expansion for that emergency radio in there. And I've included dollars into that number for that. So when you see that. So when you look at this project, we're about $3,280,000 under budget. And that includes reimbursement from the church, adjacent church, for $380,000 plus or minus. That final number hasn't been, it's pretty close to that for Faith Avenue construction. And that includes also this was the project that we balanced the inflation for the rest of the projects on. So that includes that. So that is there as well. So Memorial, that's the music edition. That was roughly $980,000, and that was about $300,000 under budget. And that was completed in 2019. And Robert Frost, if you look at these, I should probably told you that there's a bond number, then there's a capital number of items that we rolled into that. What we try to do is make some efficiencies and budget some of the needed things that were listed in when we did that CIP projects and listed those in blue, if you remember. And we try to roll some of those in when we did these projects. So there's a combination of capital and bond money into these projects. So if somebody goes back to look at what those dollars are, I mean, they don't quite match, that's the reason for that. But the end of the day, it's the project total includes both of those. And then when I get done with those projects, you'll see what the bond number is and what we're in. So this project was about $2,347,000, about $72,000 under budget, and that was completed in 2020. Then you have Laura Wilder. That was that new elevator, playground, bathrooms, offices, and tutor rooms, those sort of things. And that project came in at $1,829,607, and that's was about $200,000 over budget. Now these all numbers include furnishings, everything that was associated with this. So. Horace Mann, if you remember, this one has a little uniqueness to it, but this is a security entrance, ADA staff restrooms, renovated existing administration area and some other, and that new parking lot. This was completed in 2020, and we did some renovations of the restrooms, et cetera, with the capital. This project was almost $2,500,000 and about $37,000 over budget. But if you remember, we deferred all of the classroom edition with that. So we rolled over the classroom edition of $2,569,000 for that. And we've also inflated that so the inflation numbers were hitting in the right time. So that's a number that got moved over to that with the additional inflation. And that's sitting there for 2024, 25. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as we get there or move forward with the future projects. Lincoln High School, this is currently underway. We hope to be done in 21. This is expanding the athletic training area, providing exterior restrooms, and updating existing restrooms. So we're kind of combining, we took the old restroom out and kind of doing a shared restroom there. And then we did some projects under the capital outlay. This project was $1,432,000 and currently about $23,800 under budget. Now, this project isn't complete, unfortunately, but I think we're starting to see what's going to happen. And I'm just so thankful that we have the high school done and the middle school done with what's happening in the construction area right now. This is sitting there, and we can't finish it until the roof insulation gets there. And I can't do the ceramic tile in those bathrooms until I get a roof on it. And that's not scheduled to be here till the second week of September. But every project is starting to see these kind of things happen in delays, and and I say we're just trying to manage, not get ahead of ourselves where I'm getting problematic for kids and how we're operating schools. So we have this isolated. We're able to operate the whole school, and I'll give you an example at Cleveland Elementary as well when we get there. But so we're trying to really manage how we can continually operate without getting impacted in some of this construction. So logistically, it's a nightmare, and it seems to be getting worse than better. So hopefully, as we move forward, we won't see that, but inflation and everything else will be an impact. Cleveland Elementary, constructing the new gym and associated rooms, new kindergarten classroom, 2 music rooms, multipurpose, and miscellaneous capital outlay, like replacing all the windows. And we're kind of right in the middle of this one. This project is slated to be completed in '22. And our goal is to move into the new gymnasium over Christmas. So, and we're on track for that. I think it's looking good. There's a few things that we probably didn't get done. They were planning to do the chiller, and knowing what we had to do at Horace, Mann, and the chiller delays, and I said, we're not tearing the old chiller out until the new one shows up. So the new chiller is not going to be here till mid-September or late September. So we're operating on the old chiller, which is okay. And then this winter, we'll put the new chiller in. So we're still we're trying to manage. That's another one of those managements. Don't get ahead of yourself. We did move forward with the boilers, and they're being worked on right now. They're pretty much in place. So that project's on schedule, and things still are happening. And we did find out just yesterday that we may not have our 1-inch lines for the basketball courts. So we'll have to try to figure out how we're going to deal with that. But that's just one of those things. But this project, we had budgeted, right now it's at $7 million, almost $200,000 for the project. The budget's in there. And that's projecting some change orders that will come through. And we're about $535,000 under budget for that. So you might see some when we do our walkthroughs, some change orders come through that we'll try to pick that up under that budget number. So we, like, I know there's some concrete and some flat or receiving areas that we probably could do and save some on capital.
I just had a brief question of my own about this. Is that okay if I ask now? How much of a disruption was this to traffic flow and things right around Cleveland as we got the year started?
Oh, the traffic flow around Cleveland is exactly the way it
Okay, so it didn't.
has been. I mean, they were tight because we had to do a sewer tie-in. We got that all complete.
Okay,
So
great.
it should be all right, other than maybe contractors parking around the site. But that we kept the old parking lot intact, and so we should be all right as far as that. And next summer, the playground will be reconstructed, and a new parking lot and drop-off area will be integrated with that. So that's why it's going to go through next year. And we haven't worked out exactly the dominoes that will happen inside once the gym opens up. We'll work with the admin team over there, decide if we're going to keep the old multi-purpose room active and then do the gym first, or how that's going to work. Back when Mitch was there, the idea was that we were going to feed out of the multi-purpose room and then do the gym and then kind of flip-flop those. Because the old multi-purpose is going to be the new music area. So there's a lot of dominoes that'll happen, but we'll just sequence that, and we'll review that before we embark on that with the building administration. So Jane Addams, we constructed 2 music classrooms. We moved, if you remember from the original schedule, we moved the playground and the parking lot project up because we obtained those properties. And so we've moved that forward. And this again, I mean, there's been some delays in piping and so forth, so it's created some slowness on the playground and parking lot. But everything inside the building is complete, with the exception of toilet partitions, and we have painted plywood toilet partitions in place. You can't hardly tell when you walk through the building, but that's one of those things that there's been delays. Even on Cleveland, there's been some delays, but we have enough free time to get those in the process. So some of these smaller summer projects are the ones that really become tight, and some of the delays create some nightmares for us. But we put plywood partitions so they operate just like they would. We got the whole sprinkler system in, and new fire alarm system in, and all the plumbing in the tunnels. So we're going to finish up with the playground and and the parking lot, hopefully in the next month. So it could extend, the parking lot could extend a little bit, but they're actually using the playground now with some temporary fencing. They got the playgrounds painted, but one thing, the play structure doesn't arrive till about mid-September. So, and that's all our playgrounds that we did this last year. So they're all been delayed, and right now they're on track for mid-September. So, and this project came in at $2,950,000. That's what's projected right now. Under that's $54,000 under budget. Now that includes buying the houses and those sort of things. And we did work with Habitat or Sioux Falls Housing, and and they moved that house for us. So, and we're doing the same thing with Whittier neighborhood. If we buy a home, we're gonna see what their interest is. And they were interested in only one of the two houses that they thought was viable for them. Okay, then Instructional Planning Center, you see that under construction now, the lobby. Then we've got exterior storage and community education storage area as part of the capital. This project's about $644,000 projected and about $1,000 under budget. So we know that might be with some of the ceramic that we're going to have to do, might go over a little bit. So I think that's the last one of the bid project. So cost summary of awarded and completed projects to date. There's about $249,278,000 of projects on the bond, about $6.8 million on the capital of the project, and the final bid with estimated cost of all those with the projections that were on the sheets that you saw, it's about $145,540 that we're projecting will come in. So right now we're looking at budget to actuals about a $10,500,000 under budget. So,
so looking at that, would you say it's an even percentage distributed between the bid and bond for those that under budget number?
Yeah, right now we took the capital and spent most of that.
Okay.
And assumed those were better numbers.
As I was hoping, so the bond we can be.
Yeah, so the bond right now the bond is better.
It's getting the savings. Okay, thank you.
So when you look at percentages, we're about 78.57% of the bond bid and underway or completed. And then right now we're at about 6.79% of the bid. Now, how that inflation, now if you look at what we did with inflation with these projects, and you'll see that'll show up. But when we did the estimate, we started at 3% inflation, then went to 4 in the mid-years, then we went to 5 on the couple years out. Because those are the ones you don't know. Now, I don't know if 5's going to cover those numbers as we move forward. But as you do some of these long 5, 8-year projects, you kind of really do well, then you kind of peak over. So, with what's going on with the steel and some of the wood and some of that, it'll be interesting to see what some of these numbers. Yeah. And we can get it all. So right now we're doing great, and so forth. So future approved CIP projects, JFK, I won't go through these. We'll hit each one of these individually. But you got about 7 more projects, and then the Horace Mann is the one. So JFK, we're planning on, we met with them last spring and did all the preliminary design work last spring with the buildings, and they're working on construction documents. And this one has a new gymnasium and associated rooms, converting the existing gym into the multi-purpose and kitchen area, and convert the multi-purpose into a general music area, and then construct a new parking lot. We're also working on this one with the city. They're doing a whole West Mesa development drainage system, and they're kind of in a 3-year cycle with that. So we've had several meetings with them and how this can work. And they may be coming towards us to do some type of retention on site, and then we can get some of the dirt from that for a parking lot and work together with them. We always try to work with them, but this was before this one even started planning. So this project is slated for about $5,770,000, and that's with the identified capital outlay project, and that's the capital outlay projects are building permanent walls and updating ceiling and those sort of things. They've been wanting that for a long time. And before we move for the monitors, it makes sense to do it, and then we'll get those done at the same time. So our goal is to bid this one probably 21, 22, probably, I'd like to do it November, December, so get this one done. We've had the public hearing on this project last year, so this is ready to go for bids. Okay, Roosevelt High School, Roosevelt and Washington will be very similar, so there's not a lot of difference, but we've also met with them last year, have the schematic design done, probably almost through design development, and this project will provide additional multi-purpose gym storage, additional PE coach's office, and expand training room, expand weight room similar to Lincoln and Jefferson, and provide an exterior restroom for security, and provide a soccer and tennis, or soccer only here, because tennis is up on the park site. Then we're going to update the bleachers in the gymnasium, refinish the gym floor at the same time, air condition the weight room, and then do some other miscellaneous things that are probably not as critical. But this project is slated for about $3,200,000, and Washington is virtually the same, with the exception that they have a tennis and soccer storage area. They have tennis and soccer on site. This one's $3,341,000, and we'll bid these together as two bid items.
And then when do you anticipate or hope that this work will be completed? Like summer of 22 or?
Summer into fall of 22. So we're going to have to work through that. Right now, we wouldn't even have steel if we bid it in time to complete it. So we're going to have to work closely with the contractors on how we can get these accomplished. So there's a couple here that the entrances, we're going to improve the entrances to the back weight room and gym space for corridor, so you can access that athletic area.
I know I think I ask you this every time you give this update, and I was at Washington last night watching people struggle up the bleachers.
Yeah.
Yes, and so it makes me very nervous. So I'm hoping that that's one of the things that we don't have to wait for materials on, that we can, I know I'm living.
Well, I would love to have this done next summer.
Yeah.
It all depends if I can get delivery of the bleachers. So
okay.
Some of those we don't have any control over.
I just had some people ask me last night, and I'm like, you know what? I think we're talking about that tomorrow, so I'm going to ask. Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I totally agree.
More likely what we'll do is we'll make sure the gym floor gets done, and then if it's delayed, so much, we'll try to get them in as soon as possible. Maybe we can hit before basketball season. Yeah, it's too early to tell.
I'm glad there's a timeline. I feel like, I probably have asked about this 3 times. That means that, like, for the last 3 years, it's been on and I know it's out there. It's just there's a process and a timeline for everything. So I'm just glad that it feels like it's getting closer.
Yep, it's real close. So, and the design of this is quite far along. So
that won't be
we can get ready. We may have the public hearing this fall earlier than normal. In the past, maybe after we get done with the walkthrough, so we'll see what that is, so we don't miss something. I guess we can always have 2 public hearings. It's not that critical that we can't. But I think it's more critical to get these bid in a timely manner, considering what's going on. So then Hayward, this is construct new locker rooms, adds additional storage to the big community center gym. Then convert the existing locker area into multi-purpose room storage. And this one, construct permanent walls in classroom just like JFK, and level a pit area. So it's similar to what we've done at John Harris, Annie Sullivan, and makes it more usable, and some miscellaneous other things. So this one's slated for 21, 22. I'm debating if we should hold off on this one for 1 year, depending on how those other bids come in to see. So they'll be identical to the sheetrock and studs and walls and marker boards and some of those things. So then we have central services. There's some changes. What's in red are possible changes. That's bond renovates existing screening and evaluation area, constructs training and meeting rooms, and adds security entrance, and expands vehicle storage and equipment garages to house existing equipment. This also renovates some of the existing vehicle area that we're relocating into the vehicle storage. So purchasing has a loading area that they can bring their stuff closer, their risers and those sort of things, that right by the truck, so they don't have to move them so much. Gives them some more space for storage as well. And we're looking at potentially working with food service and replacing boilers to that whole complex. That hasn't been budgeted, but it'll probably be on the next budget cycle that you'll see. So it's about time for those. And then possible changes to this is eliminate the early childhood addition and renovate the IT OS department and print shop areas. So take the dollars that we had for this edition, because you'll see what we're thinking about for them in the future slides, and do an IT and OS the way it probably should be, instead of piecemeal the way it is now. So look at that as holistic, and we probably should be able to do that within that current budget that we have. And that budget, overall budget, is $3 million, right at $3.5 million. So, okay, and then we have Northwest Elementary School. The initial is to try to get it done by 2024. And there's potential to delay that to 2025, and Todd will talk a little bit about that. This would be a 4-section school, and the original estimates were based on a modified plan reuse of either Susan B. or Sotomayor, or a combination of both. With that, we're still at a point where we could do a brand new school if we want to. We just have to adjust the budget accordingly. And then the street construction, if we change venues, there's a potential to look at if we have additional land, because we're looking at some property to the west that's more towards where all the kids are now. But we'd have to look at the budget for that, for utilities and roads. I know the city is on board to get the utilities to that site if we so choose. And so there probably need to be a little bit of adjustment to look at that to see how much assessment for the utilities and roads. And for that other site, the Parks has said that they would want to be a partner with us as well. So we'll look at those sites when we go through that. But then right now we have $21,510,000 in there. Then if we did delay that, we'd have to adjust for inflation, and we'll know what some of that construction cost is when we do Washington and Roosevelt and see if we can get additional adjustment that would take place at that point. So next slide kind of talks about elementary projections, and I'll just turn that to Todd. We put that in so you can kind of see what some of the projections might be and impact of that.
So when we plan this,
I'm going to pause you just really quick. Questions about any of just the building projects before we kind of move into this next part? Okay. Good. Just a minute. Quick.
Thank you.
so when we planned this, we had a 5-year projection that showed the task force and the board and everybody. And so first couple of years we were kind of on track. We were actually 129 ahead of our projected pace. This is for elementary. And last year, obviously, COVID hit. It had a more profound effect on elementary than it did on the other levels. So we were off 300, we weren't down 351, we were off 351 from the projection. Didn't know this year if we'd have an immediate bounce back or a bounce back to our trend or what, you know, the prior trend. And so this is just the first day of school. So, you know, in 2022, we're comparing apples to oranges a little bit, but we're 496 down off the projection and we're 13 off the number. Now, when you get to, sometimes some of those kids show up, you know, with the first week of school, some come back after Labor Day. So when we get to the fall enrollment count, we might actually be up, but we're probably not going to be anywhere near, or we're not going to make up that difference of 496 on where we had projected back in 2018. So, in talking about what we should do, well, we should wait for the official fall enrollment and then do a new 5-year projection, and then kind of come back to the board and see what you want to do about whether we go for 2024 like we had planned or 2025.
I think that's prudent because we obviously were seeing other things affecting our enrollment, and might be time we need to look at how we're projecting our enrollments as well, because obviously that projected numbers probably needs to be adjusted as well going forward for next year, since we're not even at those numbers now. So
yeah, so I just should clarify in case I wasn't clear. This was the projection as of 2018
right.
going outward. We've changed and it's lowered, but I just wanted to show you when we made the decision on the elementary school, we were looking at an enrollment of 11,676 for elementary. Right now, first day of school, apples to oranges, we're at 11,180. But our projection changes each year based on what we know from prior. But this is what it was 3 years ago.
Okay. Okay, then I have Horace Mann. I think this is the last project listed. This is the deferred, construct a new addition with 6 classrooms, restrooms, meeting rooms. I think we just need to evaluate as we get closer to the planning portion and to see if that's needed or not. It was delayed because their numbers went down. So we'll just have to look at it as we get closer. The schematic design is done. We did the schematic design with the original project and just kind of held off. So the boilers, chillers, and all that's in place for this. So we did move forward and plan for it. So it's just a matter of will we move forward or will we need it? So.
And I think it's good to keep it in our pocket because we don't know with the after effects of behavioral and so forth, we might see more students having to be placed at Horace Mann than we have in the most recent.
So there's roughly $2.6 million sitting there for this project in the bond. Okay. All right, so we'll talk a little bit about a land that we have. You'll see some maps coming up, so we'll explain where they're at if you have any questions. But new elementary sites, options, we have the northwest by George McGovern. And there's a potential school park site between 26th and 22nd Street, west of Ellis Road. And then we also own Lincoln Elementary site. And I guess we put some options down because we've been getting approached by several people about what that is. An idea is to retain it for future projects if we have something that an early childhood center or whatnot. There's potential for affordable housing. That's kind of what the original thought was when we were moving towards Whittier. Or dispose of the site to potential organizations or developers. Then we have the Whittier site that's part of the bond. I think there's a $4.5 million to purchase properties over there. That's for our future replacement facility. We currently own 6 lots of the potential 41 lots, and we'd like to reissue the RFP for real estate services so we can stay on top of that in September. We did that once. They didn't really come in very well. And we're hoping that maybe we can revisit that. So with that, the circle area is the Northwest Elementary site. As you can see, George McGovern, and I was amazed that this area actually had, you can see Jefferson.
Yep.
And now that field between those have started developing, and they're going to have commercial, residential, and on the other side, they're going to develop that parcel that if you see where the fire, I don't know, I don't have a pointer there, but just to the right of the circle, Valley, that's Valley View Road, and there's a phase 2 of that development that I've seen that's going to be residential and apartments and so forth. So there's some plans to start putting some houses there.
Isn't there also a park site there as well?
Yes, it's just to the left of the circle. That's a park site. That really hasn't been, it's just been kind of gradually mowed and
Yeah.
put seed.
And nothing
haven't
there,
really
but they
developed.
own, that's what it's being held
Yeah.
for, is
Yeah.
what I should say.
Is it? Oh, right there. Oh, I learn something every day. There, and then Valley View Road is here, and this is the area that probably phase 2 of this development. And they're also developing this in the corner over here. So that's that one. The one that potentially we're looking at is this is the Lennox land that we took in. And there's a portion, a nice portion, kind of like we did in Discovery, where we could potentially purchase something with the parks that would go between 22nd and 26th. Haven't officially worked through all the logistics, but the cities, we're doing a study now on how to get this all developed. The developer owns most of this property and wants to open it up. So there's going to be a lot of growth there, I believe. And if you look at Discovery and Oscar, it's about identical distances between Discovery and Oscar. And this is 12th Street. PLS Road is right there. So that's a potential site for a future elementary. I say potential since we haven't even got it off there or anything.
Exactly.
And this is kind of the layout of the Whittier neighborhood. And the colored ones are the ones we own. The green are ones we've demolished and are just vacant lots now. And the colored ones are either, this is the only one that's not, we just finished a little bit of roof work on that, and it's out for getting rented right now. And these two are, the blue two are rented. And as you can see, the new building would sit right through here, and we convert this into parking, and this could be extra open that we get rid of or look at when we develop it. And then we would close these streets off, and this would be a connection to the football field. So you don't have to go down a neighborhood or cross streets or anything to them.
That existing football field now,
Yeah, the football field exists.
couple rocks from there.
It's, yeah. The court side is pretty close to the top, and as you go right here, you can see court side outcropping, so. Okay. So then we've also put some potential CIP projects, future. Some of these might not be so future. The old New Tech High School site. Options are professional development center, and we're actually moving forward with that. We can do that without doing anything over there, just setting up and operating it. Early child screening and evaluation, move that department over to this site. I have a meeting tomorrow with them again to walk through that. And they have full presence. They could be the manager of that building, so they can cue people in, screen people, and those sort of things. And I think it really works well and allows a lot of things to happen there. And then it also has space if it becomes a early childhood site. We could put 3 classrooms in there and some science rooms that are like adjacent to where they would be doing. So there's a lot of options there. That's not on the docket right now, but maybe moving the screening and eval and the birth to 3 that are in central services to open up that space in central service so we don't have to.
So they'd all move there.
Yeah, that group would move over there. We toured them through and good reception from them. They really thought that was a great option. So.
Let me interject just a little bit. What we looked at was, there were some possibilities for that new tech site that didn't materialize with some other organizations. And so we looked at it and said, what can we use this site for? We own it, it's here. What makes sense to put out here? And one of the things that we continue to have a need for is just more professional learning space. I mean, this place is full to overflowing, particularly at the beginning of the year, but really throughout the year. And we have, hundreds of subs coming in to get trained at the same time you're trying to onboard new teachers, and at the same time you're trying to do a regular training that you have planned, or we have nurses and we have school psychs, all those larger groups, and the larger our district gets, the more people we have. And so some of the things that have worked well over the last, 150 years, as we say this year, we don't have the capacity in the same way. And so we looked at that space and said, what could we do out here for a little to no cost to kind of make the space available? And then what might else we put out here? And so the things that Jeff was just listing are things that could go easily out there. We're already looking at doing the professional learning and the intake for the early childhood screening, and other things are very conducive out there. And when we looked at the early childhood aspect of it, we have some green space to the north. If you go out those doors and just kind of to the side there, the parking is in good shape for the things that we're looking at. We didn't have to add parking space. And then there's some nice collaborative pieces that can still come along with STC. And if we had to undo any of this, it wouldn't be any big major renovation that we, spent money unwisely, that we would have to then pull things out of there. So that's what we're trying to do, is look at how can we use that space well.
I think my only concern is just we've already got Scarborough Center out at Southeast Tech, so they provide daycare and preschool, and so wouldn't want to take anything, right.
Right. And that's a collaborative piece that we've talked about. Either we just add more capacity and we're in addition to, or with some of our career pathways, students with, early childhood opportunities, any of that, we would certainly collaborate with them, but we would try and just add value to what's out there and not be in competition. So that's a good point.
And my other concern would be transportation, because it's further out of the community. The birth to the home, they go to the home, so I'm not worried as much about those clients, but the early childhood screening and eval.
They have bus rides right.
That's what I thought. So that does just go through the time, so it should work with them too. So
yeah, we talked about that in terms of accessibility, and in some ways it's better because it's right off the interstate there, and zipping around instead of having to go in and through. But we did talk about that, and that's certainly a consideration for anything that would be permanently located out there, is what's the accessibility. And we looked at another early childhood facility earlier last year, and that was one of the things that was just so far north that it didn't seem feasible. At least this is kind of co-located with some other things. If you're a parent and you're familiar with STC, or you're maybe even doing programming out there, it's just a little bit more of a hub for learning than just kind of off by itself in nowhere land, but definitely something we need to think about.
Yeah, as far as those classrooms, I threw that in because there's space there. If we ever needed it because of like at Hayward, it's overcrowded, there's an opportunity there. Nothing in any budget to do that. So the other one's the Learning Together Center, and then we just talked about just yesterday as a temporary house for Starbase, that they're doing some renovations out there. They were at Renberg, and their numbers are pointing that they're going to be crowded, and they have to move some things on carts. That this could be an opportunity for them. And we have plenty of space, then they can move in right to classrooms that exist. We have furniture there. And I think Teresa has toured them.
Yeah, we toured yesterday with Starbase, and yeah, they appreciated the site, so we're going to go through that process.
As a temporary
Right,
situation.
and the National Guard's being there, that's where they're located. So when that's done, I'll be back to that.
Yeah, and Learning Together Center is just a takeoff on our district priorities. And we think about the span of learning that may take place out there. It just seems like that might be a good moniker. So if we want to make that official or not, but that's kind of how we're envisioning it, is just a learning center type moniker to it.
So I think it's going to be a pretty nice facility, and we could do almost everything here without any renovations, maybe a little bit electrical, but we'll do those in-house, and we can try to do that pretty economically. Okay, the next one is a potential early childhood center, and this is really needs some studying, whether we do a central facility somewhere, or do a combination school-based and smaller central. Yeah. So there's a little work to do, but we've listed it there. Dr. Stevens, if you have anything to expand on?
No, I think that's something as we, move through this year, if that's something that we want to continue to prioritize. We didn't put that in as a district priority, just knowing there were other things that really need to be in front of that. But I think the need is there. We know the need is there community-wide for childcare. And so if that's something that also presents itself now that we maybe have a different facility option, I think we can just see if that's something that we want to go ahead with. But that's a pretty big collaborative project as well, because we have a lot of other possibilities where we could either have a partner that exists in the community move into one of our schools if there's room, or adding it in that school site as opposed to a standalone, or maybe it's a standalone but we want it to be bigger. So I think there's just a lot of questions that we would need to ask about where we want to go with that and how.
Okay, then Whittier Middle School replacement, that's in the future, and just put it out there that there'll probably be a 3-year process. There'll be a brand new school. It's not going to be a plan reuse that we can get going quickly. So we want that to fit that site and be designed for that site. So it just takes a little longer to make sure everybody has their input and meet the standards of the district, but they have their input.
I've got one more for you.
Mhm.
We talked years ago, for a long time, about the closing, when you put in the bleachers, and we closed the media area, but Roosevelt and Washington.
Mhm.
But the other 2 schools don't have to work through the media when they use the facility. So if we could do that, we talked about it 5-6 years ago.
Yeah.
I thought we had it done. Well, we were going to do it. But something to think about. I don't know what the cost would be. You probably-
I would have to look back, but we did estimate it, and we do have some drawings of it, because it's come back about twice now. Yeah, the other ones are actually, that media is actually in the gym, that they access through the gym. Okay, then high schools, probably want a discussion on field turf and lighting at Lincoln, Roosevelt, and Washington. The standard has been changed, and we just need to probably get that on schedule to make them comparable. There's a lot of clamoring in the buildings and in the community about getting that accomplished sooner than later. And you probably have
I really do. That would be nice. I mean, I don't think it has to work without it. I'm sure people make a lot of noise about it, but what you think, son? I would like to see him get a nice turf field or whatever, obviously. But
I think, whenever we have that standard that's put in place at a new facility, everybody is looking to say, what does that mean for our existing facilities? And this is also directly connected in our district priorities about kids being involved in activities, and we want those activities to all have a high standard of a performance area or practice area. So, I think this is something that's pretty standard. We've had Howard Wood, of course, in our district, which is able to accommodate events that are competitive, but we also have a lot of things that lead up to those competitive events, and we've added teams and more kids, and all of that just plays into what does that standard become then, and can we get that done? And so I think that's something, and Mark, when you mentioned a couple of those, maybe other things that have been on the list, that might be where those things all fit together, is what brings us up to that new standard for where we can accommodate that. And of course, there's some areas where we won't be able to make things look all of the same and don't need to, but this is an area that's probably something that we need to get done.
What would that cost?
Oh, probably about $2 million a site. Maybe a little under that. That's kind of, since we'd have to evaluate the existing drainage and how much we can use of that. Because each school has a pretty good perimeter drainage system that we could dry into, and that saves some dollars.
Does it save dollars once it's in? Maintenance, water, whatever?
The maintenance will be a wash. You won't have to water it, but you won't have to mow it, but you have to groom it. You don't have to pull it. So, yeah, the maintenance, I always say, is somewhat of a wash when you do that. When we took from Howard Wood, you can save some time though. You don't have to mark fields, you don't have to stripe fields, those sort of things, and you don't have to watch the band plot in the mud when they're out there on a rain. That when it just rained. Those things are what really improves, the school. And the football, they can play on. I was shocked when I heard that they don't play any games at Lincoln High School because of the condition of the turf, and about mid-season it gets to be terrible. Because I was trying to coordinate when we updated the scoreboard. And go, oh, don't worry about it. We don't have any games here. So that's when I go, wow. It kind of tells you what that condition of that field is.
And I think I'm correct, and correct me if I'm wrong, that also opens up some middle level competitive capacity if we have the ability for our middle schools to play at a high school location.
Yeah. I mean, you can virtually use it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to be about a 15-year life cycle. But the majority of it is the drainage system, the gravel, the digging out. I think Howard Wood, when we did it, was about $360,000 to replace it. When we did that last
15 years later.
Yeah. So that is it. So open for any questions or.
To open up for public input, we have one person signed up, Chad Bishop. One Smith. Public input is work sessions of 3 minutes. Keep it tiny.
My name is Chad Bishop. I live at 7405 South Valencia Drive here in Sioux Falls. What could I possibly have to say about this? Kitchens. I wanted to let you know that Gay Anderson and Morgan Vanderzee were very generous with their time this Monday morning, and we had a great exchange about the school nutrition system. It was timely discussion because I learned something related to your meeting here today. Gay informed me that, to the best of her knowledge, not one elementary school in Sioux Falls has a full-service kitchen. How many facilities do, and why does this matter? This will limit our options when it comes to making sure we are serving our kids the most nutrient-dense food possible that they will eat. It will continue to favor the use of what can be called highly processed food in the district. I am here today to advocate that you actively engage your nutritional staff in these efforts as keystone stakeholders so that you can design and retrofit our schools for the vision I think we share. Perhaps kitchens can be planned now and built, or planned and built now, but use as flex space until the time comes. I understand some of the requirements that are impacted with respect to ventilation and fire protection, but it should be considered at this point. So why is this important? Our experience during the pandemic should have brought a few things into crystal clear focus. Our collective public health and economic risk were both primarily a function of chronic disease in our country. Other than age, our biggest risk factors for adverse outcomes were clinical obesity and diabetes. Economically, we can measure part of the impact as we had to monetize $4.1 trillion to keep the lights on last year. As a side note, as monetary velocity picks up, it's reasonable to bump that inflation estimate you cited. We're either to start making strategic investments into this key factor or we will continue to pay. School nutrition is a non-trivial piece of this problem. You serve thousands of kids every day in the district. As quantified by the CDC, our total public and private healthcare spend was $3.8 trillion prior to the pandemic. The CDC says 90% of that is due to chronic disease. At the top of the list, obesity and diabetes. I will continue to argue that this is a function of a poor nutrition. We're overfed and undernourished. Think of the thousands of kids you can impact for life by creating the country's best school nutrition program. I believe this to be a critical component in your meeting your stated goals of making the Sioux Falls School District the best district in the country. Thank you for your thoughtful consideration in this matter. Chad.
Any questions for Todd, Jeff, or Dr. Saban on the facilities update?
No, I just think it's always exciting to hear the changes and the growth that we're experiencing, and at all levels, really. We're talking about early childhood, we're talking about all the way up to high school. And so again, just like our bond really impacts all of those different levels and all the different schools across our city, so do all of our future projects that we're looking at too. And I think some of those ideas for new tech are really interesting, given that kind of educational hub that it has become out there. It's a great partnership with the people who are already out there, the organizations, and it might be easier for some people to get to. Like you said, the parking is great. It's easy to walk up to the building. It is here too, but as people are coming and going continuously from this building, you're so right in saying let's move some of those bigger events or teachers and showcase some of our other buildings too. So some exciting things. You think about all the things that we've accomplished this year with the projects, and then you think, okay, here comes, you know, not necessarily round 2, but round 10 or whatever it is, but it's continual. And I think that speaks a lot for our district and our ability and our desire to keep our facilities in top-notch, very competitive and very reliable facilities for our community to depend on, knowing that no matter where you live in Sioux Falls, the school that you send your child to is going to be a great facility that's safe and up to date and recently renovated in some way, whether it's just the classrooms or the bathrooms or the outside or the security in the office. But we're looking at every single school, regardless of its location. So lots of good things. Lots of money.
Well, thank you to Jeff and Todd and Dr. Sam for all this information. I know it takes a while to compile all this and update all of us as well as the community on what's going on with our buildings and so forth. I look at, you know, our enrollment numbers, and that does give me pause when looking to the future what we do, but part of me thinks we also could still maybe develop an elementary, because I do feel when our elementaries are so big, a lot of those elementaries lose that community feel to them. So I'm not saying we should do this. I'm just saying it'd be nice to, part of that study, whether we're going to do it, is should we also look at making it a little smaller, making it in that neighborhood, and that would also alleviate some of those other schools up in that area, whether it's Oscar Howe or JFK or our Pettigrew, you know, just all that northwest side, those large schools. And those are just some thoughts. I'm just seeing this all today, so this is just off the top of my head. But those are some things I'd like to be studying as we go forward on that. I also think our city, our state, has the highest percentage, I believe, of working moms in the country. And I think of, by adding this early childhood, by after-school programming and all that, I think that really would help make us a more possibility option for some parents who might be using private schools that have aftercare right there that are not full, or even preschools that have aftercare that are not full as well. So I think we always need to be looking and studying these things so that we make sure we're able to serve our community and what our families need in our district right now. So I think all of these things are heading that way. And same with wherever that elementary school does end up, is there going to be other opportunities for those after-school programs? You know, like the park, we talk about that. Is that going to be there? What's that going to be? What other partners that we have in the community, like BOA or Boys and Girls Club, will they be near theirs to provide additional programming for after school too? So those are all things we should all be thinking of, I think, as we go forward on this.
It was interesting to see the residential development growth that you included. It was I was surprised at first, and then I thought it was such an important component on the location of the school. So thank you for including those. And then the second part is we talk about the enrollment numbers in the new elementary school. It would be my hope that we continue to use and observe the 23-to-1 ratio for students to teacher in the classroom and making some of those decisions.
No question, the dirt's moving out there, so, you know, it's exciting to see, but I will tell you, I was sitting at a soccer game Saturday morning watching the earth movers, and I think we've all seen how quickly the developments happen, and so I think you've done such a good job of being proactive, and now we get kind of the next round of that, and so I would imagine we'll be having a lot of conversations this year because it's really not that far off.
Yeah, I mean, I think the city is studying a sewer line from north of 12th Street all the way to 41st Street that will feed that whole spot right there. That's it'll change the dynamics out there quite significantly to do that.
So, no other questions or comments? We have a motion to adjourn the work session.
So moved.
Second.
Second, all those in favor of adjournment, we had to say aye.
Aye.